All the way back into the Third Age, there were 6 brothers who lived in a small village in the land of Misthalin. These brothers were not ordinary farmers, as they were very skilled with weapons and had a natural talent for warfare. They wanted to become the very best and decided to enlist in Saradomin's army to fight in the God Wars. This would surely give them the experience and rank to become people of high stature one day. And so, Aram, Guthin, Darok, Carol, Torag, and Verak were taken into Saradomin's army, and they were sent on a campaign to conquer southern Farinthri during the God Wars. Farinthri is now known as the Wilderness. Somewhere during this campaign, the brothers struck a deal with a mysterious figure which gave them power, weapons, and armor. After fighting in the Farinthri campaign, the brothers were assigned to the Mauritania campaign. This campaign was started by the Saradominists in Misthalin. The nation had fallen to Drakon's continued raids, and they wanted to save their nation. So, an army was formed, with the strongest warriors they could find, including 6 young and promising brothers, who wielded great power. With a force of several thousand men and the 6 brothers at their head, the Crusaders left their humble homes in the west and crossed the river south into Mauritania. There are tomes that speak of their great deeds. One in particular, called Legend of the Brothers, has an interesting tale. During the Great God Wars, there were 6 brothers who fought side by side against the forces of evil. Their fervor in battle was awed and feared by all who saw them. Nothing is known of their origins, only that they were first seen when the legions of evil were pressing their hardest into civilized lands. It was the eldest who struck the first blow in the battle, hurling powerful battle magic into the enemy's ranks and opening a hole for 4 of the other brothers to charge through and into the heart of their forces. Little was seen or known of the 6th brother at the time, only that when one of the other brothers looked to be in danger, his foe would be felled by a shower of crossbow bolts. It wasn't until the dust had settled that those left could look on their saviors, the 6 brothers who stood proud with the bodies of the fallen at their feet. The 6th brother was probably Carol because of the crossbow bolts that were fired by the 6th, and Carol is the only brother with a crossbow. For years, these brothers fought hard against the enemy, throwing themselves into battle with little regard for their own safety and relying only on each other for aid. Stories were told around campfires by soldiers of the feats they'd witnessed. They became legends long before the end. Notice that it said relying only on each other for aid, so the skill set of each brother complemented each other. Some say he'd always been there, but no one really knows for sure. The first real tale was after an incursion deep into the Darklands, where once again the brothers proved their worth. It was after the battle that a bent and robed figure was seen amongst the bodies of the dead. Most took him for a scavenger, but he moved towards the campfire of the brothers with such directness that some at first thought him another companion. The brothers, however, reacted with suspicion at his approach, drawing their weapons and rising from their places. The stranger merely stood before them, as though sizing them up before turning and walking back into the mists. Some say that it's the first time they'd ever seen the brothers unsure. The Darklands, as said in the book, is the land of Mauritania after Drakon invaded. The brothers were aggressive when they saw the mysterious figure. This seems strange, as this figure gave the brothers their weapons, so a normal response would be that they were nice and appreciative towards the figure, but instead they drew their weapons. As the campaign moved deeper into the Darklands, the stranger appeared with greater frequency, often appearing on a rise near a battle and watching over it. The most disturbing thing was how his presence started to affect the brothers. They became distracted and, on occasion, even received injuries that required attention. It is clear to see that the brothers didn't want to disappoint the figure and therefore made mistakes. There's something to learn from this. Don't be afraid to disappoint people. Try to do your best and don't stress out. It was deep in the heart of the enemy's territory, in the falling light of dusk, that the enemy struck back. Great monstrosities swept through the camps, tearing at all in their path. Soldiers scattered like chaff in the wind before the onslaught. The brothers, valiant as ever, stood back to back before the enemy and fought with all their might. As dawn broke, the enemy fled the battle, moving faster than any man could give chase. It was as the soldiers went about rebuilding the camp that the brothers collapsed at their campfire. They lay as though dead, yet breathing, muttering in strange tongues. Their injuries were found swollen and infected. None of the physicians knew what to do, and it was like no infection they had ever seen before. All through the day, the brothers were tended and cared for while the soldiers waited nervously for their heroes to rise once again. It was then, just as the sun's last rays vanished behind the horizon, that all hope was lost. As if on cue, all the 6 brothers sighed one last breath and died. It was only then that the sentries noticed the stranger once again, standing on a rise just outside the camp. Somehow the stranger had the power to change the course of the campaign. He made it so that the brothers couldn't heal their wounds. These wounds were probably infected by a virus that came from the vampires. That night, the camp was surrounded by the great beasts of the enemy once again. But they didn't attack, they merely baited the soldiers to come out and meet them. Once again at the break of dawn, the enemy fled without a trace, leaving the soldiers tired from a restless night of worry and fear. That day, the commanders decided to turn back. They could advance no further without the brothers' aid. As was the custom at the time, out of honor and respect for the mighty fallen, they constructed 6 great barrows for the brothers. A crypt for each brother, covered in a small hill of earth that would hold their remains undisturbed by predators. The work took many days. For each night the enemy returned, and the soldiers had to flee back inside their camp to wait away the night to the sounds of howling and scratching at the fences. But each day they resumed their work, their sense of duty to the brothers surmounting their fear of the dark forces in the land. On the last day, the assembled troops buried the brothers inside their stone tombs. Then, with great reverence but little ceremony, they covered the tombs with earth. As the army broke camp and turned to march back towards their land, the stranger was seen once again, standing atop the central barrow, standing tall against the failing light with his arms outstretched to the sky. We can read that it was a custom for that time to build barrows for fallen heroes. Although not many other barrows have been discovered, here we see the stranger once again on the central barrow. This stranger didn't say anything, but just watched. What was he thinking, and why did he take their power and focus? To answer this question, we must look at his character. We know the name of this mysterious figure. His name is Sliske. Sliske is a Zerosian Majorat. He was described by Azanadra as Sliske the Serpent-Tongued, who delves the shadows. Sliske enjoyed using tricks and lies to manipulate others, while being elusive unless he desires to seek you himself. Although supposedly a devout Zerosian, Sliske was very unlike his fellow Zerosian Majorat. Sliske is extremely cunning, confident, an excellent liar, and able to betray allies at a whim. He often works towards his own goals while making his allies believe what they want. Now we know more about the character of Sliske, and we can see why he took the power from the Barrows brothers. He gave them their power and weapons to play with them. He wanted strong warriors that did what he ordered. Now the Barrows brothers are under the control of Sliske, who wants to use them to liberate his god Zeros in the future. There's another transcript called The Fall of Six, which describes the rise and fall of the Barrows brothers, but focuses a bit more on the mysterious figure. The stranger had watched the campaign from its first footfall into the lands east of the river, always from afar. His lidless eyes were affixed to the 6 commanders, resplendent in their armor, their weapons, poised to attack yet unmet foes. Behind each commander a phalanx of war-hardened soldiers, their metallic armor glinting even in the pale light of these dead lands. Brilliant fingers of light inching towards the heart of Hallowvale. Here we get some more insight in the appearance of Sliske. It is said he had lidless eyes. A phalanx is also mentioned. The phalangists are the human forces who fight in a single huge formation called the phalanx. They are armed with huge 5-meter-long pikes and are usually deployed to create an unassailable line across the battlefield. We can see that the forces behind each commander were very skilled soldiers. The 6 were brothers, hailing from one of the smaller towns of Mistalin. They had shown a glimmer of prowess in combat even back then, though their chores as farmers chewed up much of their time. Here it is said that they used to be farmers and from one of the smaller townships of Mistalin. As most great heroes, they could come from Lumbridge. Their thirst for fame is what led the stranger to them, for although their skills were unmatched in their township, they desired to be best of all men, and the stranger had promised them this, for he knew power and could grant it. His long years had taken him to many distant lands where he had collected much arcane knowledge and many artifacts of value and strength. And it was those very weapons and armor he had given them that they now wielded, which granted them their desire. If they had not been blinded by such desires, had heard the deviousness in the stranger's voice, or could have seen the calculating eyes hidden deep within the dark recesses of his cowl, then they may have taken a different path. Here we see the first part of the fall of the Barrows brothers. Wanting to become more and not thinking about what that power would do. The stranger came from the same planet as Zamorak. On this planet, strong artifacts reside. This is where the Barrows brothers got their strong equipment. Aram, the eldest brother, crumbled his foes with powerful magics and sapped their strength and their will to fight. Darok and Guthin, the next eldest, did not need their foes to be weakened to decimate them. Darok with his great axe cleaving limbs from bodies and Guthin's spear skewering organs. Should any enemy manage to survive long enough and have the chance to strike a blow, Carol would fire a swath of bolts to pepper their chest as they took their swing, throwing them back. This battle was the campaign's most unrelenting and bloody. The brothers' confidence and skill had grown over the years, as the power they wielded made them feel invincible. It made them living heroes to their followers. The straggling enemy survivors were routed, but even they were cut down. Try as they might to flee, Torag pounded them into the dirt, and their prayers rang hollow as Varrock flayed the skin from their bones. Another victory. Here we see the power of the Barrows brothers. A thin smile slowly curled upon the stranger's mouth, snagged teeth protruding, and he thought truly, they are worthy. Now is the time, before he slowly and deliberately turned heel and made his way down from his cliff-top perch to the battlefield remnants below and the camp the brothers' army was now constructing. Sliske finally had the strong warriors he wanted and would turn them into his whites. The silent stranger's message could be heard only in the brothers' minds, a raspy, conspiratorial whisper. The time has come, my warriors. The gifts I bestowed upon you have served you well, and you, in turn, have served your God. Now it is time to begin your servitude to me, to my God. You shall stand ever vigilant for his return, and then you will be champions in his glorious army. We shall have victory against the usurper. But first, you must die. Here we read more about the power that Sliske possessed. He can talk to people without using his voice. Here he made the brothers afraid and spread doubt of their power. This is what ultimately created their downfall. On the last day, he watched the crypts being covered and the burial mounds completed, and the remnants of the brothers' army turned their back on the dark to begin their long journey home. As they passed from view, he turned, again walking deliberately and slowly towards the brothers, now dead and interred in their barrows. Arms outstretched atop the central mound, the stranger chanted in some foul, ancient language, casting his old magic. A vulgar purple light formed in front of him, fell to the earth and bled into each of the barrows. He turned them into his whites, waiting to call on them when he needed them to. We can see that Guthin is wearing a Legends cape, but according to the headmaster of the Legends Guild, called Radamus Urkel, he founded the Legends Guild in the year 149 of the 5th Age, but Guthin came from the 3rd Age. This means that the time between the death of Guthin and the founding of the Legends Guild is more than 1,000 years, but Guthin already had a Legends Cape back in the Third Age, so maybe this is a potential quest. Who knows? This was the story of the Barrows brothers. It would be great if you could leave a like and share this video with your friends. This would let the genre grow and get more people interested in the story behind the game they play. And don't forget to subscribe if you like these sorts of videos. Good luck on your grinds, and have a fantastic day.